All right, everybody. Oh, geez, I've been live for 3 minutes now, apparently, while I was preparing this. My apologies for everybody. There might even be some audio on there. Not sure what you heard, but welcome to the Scho. No, now we're live just now. Welcome to Scho-Zone. It's your host, Ryan Schofield. Sorry for the production value or lack thereof, but this is a St. Louis Cardinals themed podcast, so I guess you're going to get about the same level of quality that you're currently seeing on the field right now. I can't believe I'm watching this because I really like the guy. He's a good human being. But I just watched Paul Goldschmidt strike out for the fucking fourth time today, which now extends him to 0 for his last 31, which is really troubling because he had a little stretch before this stretch started that it looked like he may have been, if you looked at the box score, you would have seen he was getting some hits. Those 5 hits that he had against Detroit in the doubleheader, like they were hits as far as they got through, but it wasn't like he struck a ball that he barreled something that was impossible to field. I don't think any of them went for extra bases. I think they were all just singles. I have no organization whatsoever to any of this because I don't even know where to start with what we are watching with one of the proudest franchises that has ever, in America, the St. Louis Cardinals. We have been called the best baseball fans in America. I don't even if we're supporting this team, we're just fucking idiots. I don't think it makes us good fans. And that's the disconnect now we have with our lovely owner there, Bill DeWitt. I'll eventually organize these thoughts. I just got done with a long day, turned on the screen here where, one of my buddies just texted me that, he said the bet of the day for him was Freddie Peralta to get over 17 and a half outs. Yeah, pitching 6 innings against the fucking Cardinals. I mean, some kid that had never pitched in Major League Baseball just did it last night on 79 pitches. Of course, when have the Cardinals ever been prepared for a pitcher they've seen the first time? I love that our manager says, oh, the sweeper, had a little more movement or late tail than we expected. Well, what the fuck did they expect? Did you prepare these guys at all? Or did you just kind of say, yeah, this is what this guy's pitch arsenal, no video. Did this guy just suddenly throw his best sweepers in Major League Baseball? Had anyone ever seen him or scouted him in the minors at any point in time, by any chance? Who knows? I don't know. I'm just a fucking guy who sells furniture for a living and smokes a shitload of pot and watches baseball because it depresses the fuck out of me now. I actually planned on doing a podcast last week. I actually was in St. Louis last week, which made me feel even worse because St. Louis sports fans, you guys are top notch. I love going to that city. I went to a fucking UFL game at the Edward Gym, whatever the dome's called now. 30,000 people on a beautiful day went inside to watch minor league football. And that was with a packed stadium down the road. And St. Louis is not a huge city population wise. I know there's the metro region is huge. The city is not, but it seems like that you guys really care about your sports teams. I guess your soccer stadium fills out. The problem is that the baseball stadium, regardless of how bad the team is, that fills up. And then that's really the message where the disconnect between ownership and great fans that I guess we are when the team is worth being there for, which now we're just idiots for still showing up. I mean, legitimately, I looked at this as that I justified me being there, is that I have a good friend in St. Louis, and that's how we met as being Cardinals fans. That's how great it is being a Cardinals fan. One of my best friends in the world now, I even consider, as pathetic as this sounds, as an adult male, one of my closest friends I kind of consider now is a guy who I started chatting with on Twitter because I realized him and I had the same thoughts on our favorite baseball team. And, a baseball team should not mean as much to you as it does. But, with me, it goes back deeper. One of the things I always I'm doing this podcast right now from Albany, New York, not exactly Cardinals fanville. And I get recognized from people as being one of the bigger Cardinals fans that they know. And I always get asked, how did that happen? It's a family thing. And you know what? I don't even really have my family left. The Cardinals are really one of the only few things I have to remember my father by. And what actually disappoints me is I want to know if they would have finally broken him. Because when I would be a more, I guess, entitled fan of that, he was always just like, hey, and I had this mentality for a while of that. if this team keeps me interested until September, they did their job. And for the most part, that's what the Cardinals did. You know, there was a point in time in my adulthood where people would say, oh, it must be nice being a Cardinals fan. You're always good. Cardinals weren't very good when I was a kid, okay? But you know what? We at least had something worth watching, all right? At least there was Ozzie Smith to watch there. Or then in the late 90s when we got Big Mac, you know, like it was at least a reason to watch here and there. What's the fucking most exciting part about watching the Cardinals right now? Watching Mason Wynn rip a throw from shortstop? I mean, as we're kind of finding now is that we don't even know. There's the immeasurables about, I mean, there's the things we can measure about Yadier Molina, and there's the things we can't measure. And I think we're really starting to see a lot of the things we can't measure in action, because somebody had to be overruling some of these horrible decisions that are being made. They didn't just come from nowhere. I don't know, but maybe I don't even know where to go. I just know that I'd like to remember Paul Goldschmidt as the guy who won me $3,000 when he won the MVP award. I got him at 60-1 odds because I thought he had a chance of surging. And that's really what's going on with this. So backtracking to me going to St. Louis for the White Sox series, which at least we were going to see a series win, right? We're only playing one of the worst teams in baseball since I think like 1903 or something like that. That wasn't that long ago or anything. But no, they lost 2 out of 3 games to that same fucking White Sox team who could not put up a fucking run in the first game. The second day I was at the UFL game, but you know, there is nothing worse. This is actually the vibe of getting there, of that they loaded the bases with nobody out in extra innings. When it got to the point of when they failed, and it was supposed to be that Nolan Gorman was coming up, which we just already acknowledged as Cardinals fans, game over. Which ironically he has 2 hits today and also hit a home run last night. We'll move to that at some point. But, you know, we're sitting there and then the game goes into a rain delay, and literally the pulse on Twitter, or even just the pulse of me amongst me and my buddy hanging out, is going, we got to wait through a fucking rain delay for Gorman to strike out. Well, eventually Ollie, which by the way is hilarious, he originally sent Gorman up to bat. After 3 hours, he had enough time to think it over to go, maybe we'll put Ivan Herrera in there. But maybe the umpire had a date that he was late for that night because he calls the worst strike 3 ever, and then the Cardinals lose. That was one thing. The game on Sunday night I went to, I used to say that St. Louis, going to a Cardinals game, had, to me, there was a vibe of, like, I called it Mardi Gras for baseball fans. It was a great time. What I went to on Sunday was a baseball funeral. And I mean that metaphorically, but it also could be literally, because I'm seeing some... You're losing the love of it for me. Like, I mean, we stayed till the end of the game to watch. Partly, I mean, I wasn't as adamant or as loud because I'm a guest. I'm not a regular there, and I didn't want to bring my New York attitude there with how loudly I could be and how ugly I could be with my feelings towards the team. But we were talking to people who said that they were sticking around to boo. The worst thing that has actually happened was that we're not even mad, really. I mean, I guess this is... I hate saying this, but this isn't me mad. What this is actually me. I'm not mad at the Cardinals. I guess I'm mad at that I don't care. I mean, I something. It's not the worst thing in the world that as I'm turning 39 in 2 weeks, that is approaching a 40-year-old man, as the Brewers now are 1st and 3rd with 2 outs. Okay, so bottom 7, 1st and 3rd. We'll see. I severely doubt the Cardinals are winning this game. And their over-under was 3.5 runs. Under had -150 juice towards under 3.5. They're at 3 runs right now. That's as good as it's going to get. And do we have... I mean, unless we bring in Helsley for 6 outs, because where I'm going to go is going to get in there is that at some point, if we run out of arms, you got to put Gio Gallegos in there. That's one of the things of that Sunday at the game when they're in a tie game with the White Sox. And me and my buddy had actually, we liked the over in that game. As soon as I saw Gallegos was up in the bullpen, it's like, we're getting runs. By the way, I'll just throw this out there. I don't know, because I was blacked out 2 years ago during the Cincinnati series. Yeah, a lot of backgrounds there. 2 years sober, or coming up on 2 years sober at some point now. But I don't recall what Gallegos, I could look through the game logs probably and figure this out. But I know that I was in the game at Citi Field that he gave up the walk-off bomb to Pete Alonso. So I definitely know I saw that at bat. That was the only at bat he did there. And then I was at the game on Sunday where he faced 3 batters and they went home run double. So the last, I have not, like, I don't know if it actually even really happens. Like in person, I have not seen Giovanni Gallegos get a guy out the last 2 times I've seen him pitched. Occasionally I see him get a guy out on TV, but that could just be special effects or CGI or something. I have to see it to believe it. And of course, let's just let the guy get in a scoring position here. So if Hoskins gets a single, they will now be trailing, not just in a tie ball game. Gonna try and multitask here. I don't know. I'm fucking vaping on here. I'm just I'm actually where I was going in my rants. I actually sounded crazier last night. This is a more toned down, more reasonable version of me, I guess. But in talking to some fans, the whole thing, you can kind of spot there's people that wear the gear and there's people that know their stuff, and we're talking to people like this one guy wouldn't shock me if he was a high level baseball player based on his build, but we're trying to figure it out because I just need to understand how we actually have highly evaluated talents coming from the minor league level. We've got 2 perennial MVP candidate, all-star, borderline Hall of Fame types. I mean, you can't say Arenado and Goldie are shoo-in Hall of Famers if this is the last taste they're leaving in their mouth. I mean, Goldie has had a good career, but I mean, 14 years, is that what's back? Oh, and of course, off the fucking wall for Hoskins. Oh, wait, they calling it a home run? Yep, there's a fucking home run. The Cardinals are now down 5-3. Fucking miserable. Oh, my God. Kittredge, get him the fuck out of here. Jesus Christ, you remind me of Jason Mott when he lost it. I don't understand why the Cardinals relievers only have a shelf life of about 100 innings. I'm just guesstimating with that one, but we get one good year out of a reliever, and then the next year maybe a little bit, and then when we rely on them down the stretch, they fuck us, and then we go on to the next batch, and we do it all fucking over again. Let's take a deep breath now. Anyway, so yeah, I was actually saying this is not the best time to make the point that I was making, is that it was a sad feeling in the stadium because I used to care. I just showed a little bit of emotion and caring there, but for the most part, I'm apathetic. Okay. My, infamous claim to fame, just, thankfully I've grown up, but my embarrassing story is that, I cared so much about the Cardinals. It's going to sound like a terrible one. I cared so much about the Cardinals that in 2011, when I thought that they were going to lose game 6, the whole story building up to that, I had the day off, got drunk before the game. Long story short, I drank so heavily when they were down 6-2 because that was how I was going to make things better. Again, I've improved my ways of thinking now. I was passed out for David Freese's home run. I used to care that much. My hand, if you notice that the pinky right here is not all there, that came from, I believe, Andy Chavez robbing Scott Rowland because I decided we lived in my fraternity house at the time and I was watching with a bunch of Mets fans. And that was when, people getting drunk and not punching holes in walls was really the big deal. I realized that punching the floor does not, it's harder to break the floor. It's just a little easier to break your hand. I once punched the TV during, I want to say that was 2004, a game 3 against the Dodgers. Jose Lima was mowing us down, and I'm on the team. I'm wearing the gear and stuff, whatever. I say us, I don't give a shit. I'm just fucking letting it fly now. If you're one of those people, fucking just leave a comment, go fuck yourself. And I'm not my friends that I know. If you're listening to this, sorry guys. But I have some friends that are very particular about that. That's why I haven't addressed that, but fuck them. They're not Cardinals fans. They don't know my pain. Jose Lima was mowing us down. Like I punched my TV because he was on the screen, and obviously that made me feel better. But the idea was that I at least cared. It was misguided emotions, but there was emotions that were there. Now I just want to know where it all went wrong. And like, this is one of the spoils of life as I get older is, I'm turning 39 in 2 weeks. I'm like an adult now, I guess, I'm an adult age. Like my parents, when I considered them adults, weren't even this age and shit. So, I always had the idea that people that were older were good at what they did, or that if somebody had a job, they were probably good at it. That's been one of the biggest spoils of my life, is finding out that like, hey, at least I speak from my perspective, which could be dangerous. Yeah, I probably sound like a cocky, arrogant prick, but I thought I went to school with a lot of morons. I was actually accelerated in school at one point in time. But I remember thinking, okay, like there's just kids that aren't as smart as me, but they'll get caught up. And then most of them, like you grow up and the same person that you thought was an idiot when you were younger, they're still an idiot when they're an adult. It doesn't really change. Like they might have a little more self-realization about them things. Like one of the most dangerous things I did is I went to college, and when I was in college, I met some of the dumbest people I've ever met in my life. And they were the most dangerous kind of dumb people because they thought they were smart because they were in college. Like I have worked and done business with some like what you would call country bumpkins. And the smartest thing about them is they admit that they're not smart about certain things. There's a certain level of intelligence of recognizing that about yourselves. Like me, for example, I don't know my ass or my elbow when it comes to cars, but I know how to relate with people and not be misled and taken advantage of, to become friends with people who do know stuff about cars. Things like that just going on there. I don't know what the hell the people that are running this baseball team, what they're going on. My theory personally is that baseball changed. This kind of came up when they were talking about the Tommy John surgeries. And you started like hearing Justin Verlander started talking about how he had to change the way that he pitched. And that just started clicking with me because I'm like, yeah, that was around like 2016, 2017. And I kind of feel like that's when like we started kind of feeling sour about, some things going on in St. Louis, where it's like, like our pitchers just don't go deep into games. We didn't get the power pitchers like everybody else did. And I don't know. It just seemed that we could be mowed down, where it's like the Cardinals are still playing by an old set of rules, where it seemed like, at least, when I study my history, because I'm a baseball historian on top of things, is that the Cardinals seem to be innovative, or they did things differently, but they did it effectively. Like the Whitey Ball era, the Cardinals would have half as many they would be dead last in home runs, and the team that was ahead of them would have almost twice as many home runs. But they would have the most stolen bases, and the team in second place would have half as many stolen bases. It was pitching, it was defense. Whitey Ball was a good, innovative style that worked for them, that got them to some World Series, could have won them some more. Let's not go down that rabbit hole. We're talking about present day. Present day baseball, they're just playing left behind. I mean, I don't understand. I mean, you can't tell me that Paul Goldschmidt forgot how to hit. Our hitters just look clueless up there. And I remember a couple of years ago, Tommy Edman. Oh, I got some on that one too. Tommy Edman, like, actually flat out said, he's like, yeah, I just, I don't feel like we're that prepared with the opponents that we face. Yeah, you look like you're lost up there most of the time. Yeah, that's the other thing too. The stadium experience is awful in the sense you're trying to get me pumped up before the game by showing me some hype video, and I'm seeing clips of Tommy Edman and fucking Jordan Walker. Jordan Walker's in Memphis and Tommy Edman, who the fuck knows when, if he's ever coming back. That's not getting me going, buddy, okay? I would say that we don't have any positive highlights of anybody recently. So here we are with that one. Yes, probably me vaping. I'll probably have to grab a Zin pouch in a second or two. Maybe take a little deep breather on here. I don't have anybody watching this one, but I'm going to share this, hoping that some Cardinals fans see this. Maybe there'll be some good clips to edit out of this, if we can possibly make sense of my irrational anger. It's rational anger. I have every reason to be upset because at the end of the day, the apathetic part, the part where I get angry, is that, like, I love the Cardinals. I love the experience of being a Cardinals fan. I don't need to have them win the World fucking Series every year. I just want them to be in the summertime, the 162 games. Like, one of the beauties of being a baseball fan is that I often said, and that last year I think was the worst Cardinals season of my lifetime, or at least when I actually could care to pay attention. And they still won, I believe, 74 games last year, or was it 72? Either way, even on the worst season possible, I got to open up this, the idea. Think back to when I was a kid. When I was a kid in the 90s, you would get the newspaper and you would open up and you would find out whether you were excited, or you'd watch Sports Center, but you had a reason to be excited. And if your team sucks, guess what? Even on the worst season, you're probably still happy 60 some odd days out of the season. And on the worst year, even when you're good, the opposite. I don't know where I'm going with this one, but the idea being that you at least you're going to get some wins here and there. I'm not getting any wins in the past 2 weeks. In the past week, I'm watching the same thing I watched last year that we all complained about. And again, let us, I'm almost at the idea of just trying something new. You got to fucking fire Ali Marmol. I don't know what it is how he got this job. I saw somebody post on Twitter the other day, and I doubt it was true, but it was believable. They said, after shaking, I met Ali Marmol and I shook his hand. And after shaking his hand, it makes sense the way he manages the way he does. My take on Ali is that he either isn't getting laid or he is not getting the quality of pussy that he thinks he should be getting. He's probably getting, he thinks he should be getting 10s and he's probably having to settle for 5s. That's the way I believe he carries himself. But where's some accountability on this one? Again, he started off last year, and even I know this, where he singled out Tyler O'Neill, and I don't know what goes on behind the scenes, but I just happen to remember that, I don't even coach anything, but for some reason I've read stuff on coaching, and I remember Chuck Knox, I believe, I believe he was or no, it was Bill Walsh or Chuck Knox, one of the guys that ran the Steelers, the guy that ran the 49ers, one of the two of them, saying that you never publicly sold out a player. And it just seems like things have been ugly since there. Like, I don't see, like there was one game I did see Goldie and Lars Newbar seemed like they were yucking it up pretty good in the clubhouse, but I don't see guys having fun there. It literally looks like work to them. Like they're going to work. They're going through the motions the way that I go through my motions of my shitty ass fucking job. Realistically, with I would take half the pay I'm making at my current job if they would just let me be devil's advocate to what happens at the front office. Because guess what? My batting average isn't much worse than fucking Brandon Crawford. Can't be worse than Brandon Crawford's, and he has a job. All right, that's another one. What fucking universe is Brandon Crawford? I mean, I think that he has to even be like, come on, guys, you can let me go at some point. Like, I mean, he can't like us very much. The Giants very well. I guess maybe there's two parts to that. You need to beat a team to be a rival, and the Cardinals could not. The Giants really are I actually made the point of saying this for a while that the hatred that Cardinals fans get should have always been directed at the Giants, because they were the ones that were actually winning World Series, where the Cardinals just were putting out a competitive team. It helped that we had the best player in baseball, which, we don't really, that's good. Let's backtrack this one a little bit, because this is not an overnight phenom. So I went to a Phillies game, and at one point in time, forgive me if I'm repeating myself, I'm a little bit incoherent right now, but I went to a Phillies game just because by the way, that felt like being in fucking heaven compared to the baseball funeral that I went to in St. Louis. I went to a day game between the Blue Jays and the Phillies wearing a Cardinals hat. Eventually I made friends with Philly people, which you can do wearing opposing stuff. They're a very particular species, the Philly fan, but I usually find is that if you join in on them and hating somebody, so my in with them is that there was some idiot wearing a Pete Alonso jersey to a Blue Jays Phillies game. I would never advise wearing other jersey of anybody on the Braves or the Mets to a Phillies game, and especially if those two teams aren't playing and you don't have any friends there. But even I finally use this as my in, and I'm going like, look, I thought it was, I wore a Cardinals hat, and I was like, I debated whether or not I should, was to wear this one, but at least I'm not a fucking idiot like that guy wearing a jersey or like that. And they're like, buddying up with me. So eventually they asked me, they're like, and I kind of feel like they were trolling me a little bit, you must be in a dark place as a Cardinals fan right now. And I'm like, you have no fucking idea, man. And I started laying it out to them, and he was like, I'm like, and I went on with the best fans rant, but I'm like, we're idiots if we still show up. And the guy was like, wow, he's like, it takes a real good fan to say what you just say. He was like, he's like, I felt like they felt bad for me. Like I got empathy from a fucking Phillies fan. Okay. Do you know how, while their team was losing, they were actually almost like concerned for me. I'm not going to go too far with it, but the fact that they actually seemed to feel bad a little bit, that was something. And I mean, I guess the way that I can kind of point things out is I've always been a happy-go-lucky Cardinals fan for the most part. I might play into the character of being angry about it, but and the thing I kind of go is that a point of pride, or to kind of give you an idea with the Cardinals, I like to think that anybody that I've ever been a part of their life, that when they see this logo right here, if they're not thinking of like Albert Pujols, then, if they're not a baseball fan, the first person they're probably thinking of is me. If they're a baseball fan, I'm probably the first fan that they think of. I've had a couple, I tend to date girls that don't like sports because I don't need to complicate that. I don't need to mix church and state necessarily. But I do know that a girl that I dated ended up moving to the Dallas-Fort Worth region. And she was like, yeah, they're really big on sports here. But, so I don't really have any favorite teams. So when people ask me, I just tell them that I like the Cardinals. I'm like, yeah, you probably shouldn't do that down in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. They're still a little sour about 2011. I don't know. I mean, that's 2011 was the last big thing. I mean, I guess I can thank the 2013 Cardinals for losing the World Series because, I mean, it ended the relationship with that same female, actually, because let's just say that if a girl is not a sports fan, they don't understand necessarily that when your favorite team loses in the World Series to the fucking Red Sox, you might just want to be alone that night. They think it's a bigger problem. I mean, I suppose me caring about my favorite baseball team was that much of a problem, but they start reading into it a little bit more. It probably would have ended anyways at some point in time. So it's nice that it got to end, I guess, a little more on the gentle side. But yeah, I'm just letting it hang out here, just what it's like being a Cardinals fan. And like, I'm at the point now where I'm looking forward to going to other games, but I'm actually watching closely. Last year, I stopped caring somewhere in the middle of the year. I used to, it used to be one of those things you don't bet against your favorite team. I'm sorry, but when I watch closely enough, I should be rewarded for how closely I follow. And when they can be predictably inept, I just assume that, this will give me some money that I'll eventually waste on you in the future if you're going to keep this shit up. Yeah, I mean, I got to grab my phone there. I got to read the one from the service member that just like this one almost made me fucking cry. But there was a tweet out there because Cardinals Twitter, it's a really interesting place now. There was people for a little bit part of the season that were saying stick with it, or and I don't even see those people anymore. Or maybe they've just all blocked me by this point when they read the shit that I'm putting out there. But like we haven't had a top prospects contribute in any meaningful. I mean, I guess we just haven't had one in the pan. I mean, Nolan Gorman was a top prospect a couple years ago. I did mention him a little bit. Yeah, like Gorman, he definitely, when he leaves St. Louis, is going to have a 35 to 40 home run season. That's just write that one down because that's just, I only have past performances to go on as Marcell Ozuna is leading. But again, Ozuna, good riddance to an extent with that one. But yeah, Alex Reyes, I mean, that was an arm injury thing, but Carlson, Jordan Walker was like, I mean, I'll just put this one out there. Jordan Walker was a co-favorite for the Rookie of the Year last year with Corbin Carroll. How's that going? Well, I mean, Corbin Carroll, he only had a decent game the other day, but he's having a little bit of a slump there. But Corbin Carroll, who had the MVP won in June last year, I mean, Ellie De La Cruz just gave everybody a chance to bet it again for a little bit. But Corbin Carroll, who was practically an MVP last year, was one of the top guys going into fantasy baseball this year. And Jordan Walker, was what the fuck happened? I mean, he's maybe having to learn a new position at the big league level. If I had to guess, he focused enough on the fielding aspect of it because he's a tremendous athlete. Just literally looked like somebody playing outfield for the first time in Major League Baseball. And he's actually now kind of become above serviceable and where he's actually able to play to his athleticism. But the guy who was the only people that had higher exit velocities than him last spring were named like Judge and Stanton, maybe Ohtani, to give you the idea the company is in. And now we're tweeting out that he had a double with a 95, mile an hour exit velocity. Cool. What happened to the other 20, kind of thing. Or can he hit the ball in the air on the ground? I don't know. That's above my pay grade, which is 0 on this one. But I'm going to grab this one I wanted to read. This one was, I'm going to take a break here. You can stare at that Cardinals logo for a second. This is the one where I wonder because, would my father have said enough's enough? I haven't called my one uncle because I just, I don't want to get him worked up. I want to maybe stop out to his house and talk to him in person about this. Because he's, my father, and his brother, my uncle, they were the type of that, they might have one player that bothers them. Like I remember laughing at Christmas one year when my Aunt Tita, my godmother, said she couldn't stand Brett Cecil because my uncle would get so upset whenever he would come in the game. Or no, it was was it Cecil or who was the lefty that there was a lefty specialist that we had that was not a special whatsoever. He kept a clean locker. I know that one. Probably trying to attention, or was that Cecil? I don't know. I forget. He broke a lot of bats. I know that was a thing too. But yeah, so this was. If you've stuck through this one, then God bless you. Thank you. But again, maybe I'll clip some of these things out here. But here it is right here. This guy, Danny, at Bama Cards Pack, which I'm looking at his profile here. And, seems like he's a flawed human trying to be better. Blood, beer, bourbon, barbecue, Bama, Roll Tide, St. Louis Cardinals, go Pack, go. I already like the guy. He writes down here, today marked a turn for me in my fandom of the St. Louis Cardinals. Watching tonight's bludgeoning after DeWitt's. Now, he wrote this, I believe, yesterday then or yet. So this was from last night, but I read this today. Let me start from the top again. Today marked a turn for me in my fandom of the St. Louis Cardinals. Watching tonight's bludgeoning after DeWitt III's comments sealed it for me. I've been to at least one game a year since 1978, except for 1994 when I was deployed all season. Many years I've gone to more than 40 games. I have hats, shirts, shorts, jerseys, polos, and other gear. Streak again stops in 2024. They won't get another dime from me until big in capital changes happen, and this franchise is returned to its rightful place as competitors for world championships instead of the laughingstock of MLB just trying to slide into a wild card. Mosaic can take his pleas for patience and shove them up his cocky ass. I've been a fan of this organization since Detroit Third was 10 years old. There isn't a more real fan than me and a lot of my friends, many of which are on this platform. I'm taking my fandom and, more importantly, my money outside to cut the grass and do other things besides watching this mediocre roster, this highly unqualified manager, this coffee-fetching GM, this hubris-filled POBO and entitled billionaire owners ruining one of the most storied franchises in MLB history. I feel sorry for Arenado and Goldschmidt, who believed y'all really wanted to compete for rings. You jerks lost a reel in Capital One today, and then he has a middle finger up until you get your heads out of your asses, put a decent product on the field for the Lou. That's a grown man saying that. That's a guy who served in the fucking military, okay? A guy who fucking, I'm sure that those guys are all about loyalty, honesty, integrity. You just fucking broke this man. A man who could not be broken, okay? A serviceman. I don't know where to even go with that one. I mean, it's disheartening hearing that you could do that to somebody. And yes, that's the broader point on this one. I started realizing this now. I, again, will say that I was one of the, hey, just keep me interested in football season, and I'm fine with that. And it's when I became good friends with my buddy in St. Louis there, who you may know as Bro Hey Bro Tani or Monday Hines on the Twitter sphere, where he's like, you just don't get it. You're not from here. And I remember that being like a little bit of a riff thing, but then I thought about it. I'm like, you know what? I don't get it. Because it really, really did seem to mean a little bit more there. And he kind of started filling in as that, we deserve, and I'm like, okay. And he's just kind of like, the bad product thing. And I was like, hey, we were excited for this one, or whatever was going on that year. It was like, hey, they kept me interested. That's all it could be. I think it was 2017, and we were possibly chasing down a wild card where that was going to be the funny one too, is that we were going to have the decision of Jack Flaherty was the best pitcher, but they would have given the ball to Adam Wainwright. That's the Wainwright one. I can probably piss a lot of people off my thoughts about that. But anyways, where I was going, where I told the Philly people is that this is not like an overnight thing. In reality, this has been happening for a while. We have just been it was all smoke and mirrors, okay? And we all bought into this, okay? The idea, I lived in Western New York, and I used to always tell people the best thing the Bills do is sell false hope. And I started realizing that's what was happening with the Cardinals, because we were always good enough to be in the playoffs, never good enough. I mean, let's think of the 2 World Series that the Cardinals won in my lifetime. 2006, 83 wins, shouldn't even be allowed in the playoffs at that record, win the World Series. 2011, when they have to come back from, what was it, fucking 9.5, 10.5 games back in a month, and then be down to their last out or their last strike how many times in the World Series to win a World Series. They're not exactly winning from a position of power. 2004, that was a fucking amazing team. Unfortunately, they just ran into the wrong team at the wrong time. 2013, this is one that I always point out there, why I don't criticize the Houston Astros in 2017 as much as others may. if you remember that year, the Cardinals had one of the most ridiculous batting averages with runners in scoring position. I just mentioned this because Carlos Beltran was on that team and it was a very, very good performer for them. And Carlos Beltran also then kind of, by all accounts, became the ringleader of all of this in Houston. Just throw this one out there. That maybe Matt Adams maybe knew what pitch was coming. What methods the Cardinals used to communicate that message, I don't know. That's just purely speculation on my part. But anyways, had that season. Just when Wainwright doesn't show up in the World Series the way that maybe we would have liked him to, it's tough to win. That would, that's just that one there. Also, I mean, in all reality, they still should win that one. Seth Maness hangs that one pitch to Johnny Gomes when Seth Maness was an automatic double play guy, and that's really the one that swung that World Series. And since then, I mean, it's been, there was the 2014 they lost. 2014 they lost to the Giants there. That one that they were probably good enough to win the World Series that year, but just could never beat the Giants. Why? Because the Giants have always had a better manager than us, apparently. That was definitely the case when it was Bochy and Matheny, but even before with La Russa, Bochy probably is the best manager of my lifetime that doesn't get the credit for it. But so basically they've played in a shit division. Okay. I mean, the Cubs had their little run of things there. They put it together. They got their World Series. It's all over with for them. Which is hilarious is that the Cubs were supposed to be like running shit for a decade, which was the tone in 2016. And well, now they're back into contention on there. But the Brewers, who really seem like they could care less whether or not they win anything with the way that they manage their team sometimes, just happen to win. But that's where we go. So 2019, 17 game win streak just removed a lot of ills where, it was, I never knew what it took from that season because were they the team that won the 17 games? Absolutely not. But all of the numbers leading up to that part of the season as okay, Cardinals got one on. They can still tie this one up or in the bottom or top 9 infield single with Goldie coming up. If Goldie strikes out for a 5th time, this is going to be the cherry on fucking top. Goldie comes up with a chance to tie the game. Me trying to tell a story. Again, nobody's watching this right now, but if anybody made it through when they actually watched the replay of this, kudos to you. You're going to have to comment me your Venmo. I might have to send you something to buy a drink or fucking something to do better with your life than to watch this shit. Which is what I'm doing watching the Cardinals right now. Goldie takes ball 1 on the outside. But so they win the 17 games in a row. It was one of those things where the team was underperforming all season based on the expectations we had of them. Then they win the 17 in a row. And then by the end of the year, the numbers ended up right around where they all should have been. But you don't feel good about it where it's like, well, which team were you really? They beat the Braves in 2019, then the National Series where you want to say they ran into a buzz. They ran into the last version of Anthony Rendon worth knowing about, I guess. That would be one way of putting it. Goldie, oh my God, Goldie breaks a hit. He's got us. Well, it's not going to go for extra bases. It's just station to station, but that's good for him. If this can lead to something good for him, I mean, I have nothing against him as the person. I have the issue with that we have a manager that still bats him 3rd, even though he is in the worst streak slump of his life. And I'd imagine that it compounds how bad he feels about it when he comes up in pivotal moments and hasn't been performing. But he just hit one the other way there. Again, I would like to say it was a ball that was laced, and I felt like I just saw a Goldie, at bat. Now let's see if Arenado doesn't disappoint me. But 2020 is when they started really losing me a little bit. That was when DeWitt made the comment about baseball not being that profitable. I'm just going to sit here right now as I'm in my living room. I do not make a ton of money by any stretch of the imagination. I just am responsible, but I spend money to go to the stadium in St. Louis. I have seen the Cardinals play in at least 10 different stadiums around this country. And DeWitt made the comments about baseball not being as profitable. And, as you look behind me, there's 1, there's 2, there's 3. Above there's a couple more. Over there's a couple hats there. This one. Yeah, I got about just without even really seeking, I can count about 15 Cardinals logos in plain sight right now. If I go through my closet and everything else, we might get into the 30s, 40s, 50s. I don't know. But that shit ain't free. And I'm not the only idiot buying the stuff. So there's got to be some money being made unless you're the worst businessman ever, in which case somebody will happily buy that from you as a profit to you. And then you can go and then do what you think you can do better elsewhere, because baseball is so hard on the pockets there that you need to dig into the fucking fan base's pockets to renovate your stadium, which you fill at the third highest level in the fucking league, but yet you only pay your players around the middle of the pack. Explain that one to me. Where's the money going? Don't know. Fucking, is it going to Ukraine? I mean, might as well, I guess, at this point. Certainly isn't going on the field. You do enough to get us there. Not, Goldie and Arenado is not the we're done. That's the we go fucking full force here. And cool, you get to freaking say, hey, we made an offer to somebody when we have no fucking chance, even though you have the fucking money. It doesn't go anywhere. And for the asshole owner to say, we're referring to those comments of that if we don't go to the games, how do they expect us to fucking put up winning product in the field? No. We will go there when you put a winner on the field. You don't take our money to put a winner on the field, okay? That's not how this goes, okay? The fans control the power of this one. We can choose to stop watching. I hope that we do at some point. I'm secretly rooting. Oh, my God, did Arenado just crush one to the warning track? And that's it's being a Cardinals fan. Arenado, that's a ball that 2 years ago was over the wall. He looks like a shell of himself. And I don't even, one thing I noticed when I was at the game, and I could be wrong on this one. I don't see everything. I don't really see Arenado and Goldie ever interact with one another too closely, or don't really see them being chummy. My take with them is that I base how people would be to have a beer with. I don't drink anymore. Arenado strikes me as the guy that, he goes out, and if he has one bad interaction with a female that night, he's just unbearable to deal with for the rest of the night. Goldie seems like the guy that has girls throwing themselves at him, and he's just too oblivious to realize it. That would be my way of that. He just is apparently the most safest place to pitch. Goldie is just middle. So you just throw it right out there. It's basically like you just spreading your legs for him, and he is just like, I don't know, what am I supposed to do with that? So then, we had that. That's the COVID year. The COVID year, I don't really count the playoffs thing, whatever like that. Then we had 2021. 2021, I mentioned the Goldie MVP year. I mean, Goldie had the outlier year of his season, or at least the outlier year relative to the rest of the league. I mean, it wasn't like it was a tremendous, historical all-time season. It was just that much better than everybody else in the National League. Well, when he was 34 years old, you had to say to yourself there, it's never going to be as good as this. And it's if the Cardinals organization was like, okay, we can just pencil Goldie in for these numbers. It was never going to be that good ever again. When you don't have your best season at 34 and then have a better one at 35, unless something nefarious is going on. And I wish it was. I would inject everybody on the Cardinals full of steroids right now if I fucking could. I mean, that would probably be weird. Probably shouldn't do that actually, but just kind of ranted for the last 40 minutes of this game here. I mean, I should be happy. My pockets are fatter. They got under 3.5 runs today. The opposing starter pitched 6 innings. The Brewers just won a series against us. So if you're a St. Louis fan and you just want to get some silver lining out of this one, I guess you can go of that. Start betting against them. Just start relying on them being inept. It's pretty dependable income at this point. And, when they turn it around, I'll happily lose some of it back and maybe start caring about the team that I once loved once again. But it is rough times in St. Louis. They were 15-25 last year. After dropping this game, they are 15-24. And if they lose tomorrow, that'll be a 4-game sweep to the Brewers. They will be 10 games back, exactly where they were last year, where we were promised this would never, ever happen again. And I think it's only going to get worse before it gets better. And the problem is, I mean, Ollie has to go just to show some accountability, I guess, to some degree, but it's not going to get better. They're just going to hire mini Ollie, whoever, Descalso, I think is the name that people mention up there, where he's just going to be another yes man. Until they get somebody, I mean, I saw some of this out there. You Terry Francona, you just write him a check and just say, or somebody of that ilk, somebody who's a established manager. Fuck, get Dusty Baker off the fuck. I mean, I'm asking for Dusty Baker. That's how bad things have gotten. That, just hang in there. And I mean, whatever. I just, yeah. I'd like to have I wanted this to be a reason to talk positive about the Cardinals when I started the Scho-Zone here. I have all kinds of stuff there. I thought it'd be great if they were a good team. I could make this a little bit of subtle, but now this has just become my little bitch fest, my little misery pity party. And yeah, I'm gonna cap this stream up there and post this episode out there to go viral. Or I don't want it to be viral necessarily because I'm gonna get critiqued up the asshole, but I'm sure at some point in this rambling incoherence rant of mine, I maybe said something that hit with you. If you have any unfinished thoughts you want me to finish up to there, you can drop a comment in the chat or email me at the Scho-Zone podcast, or more importantly, where I love to interact with most of you at on the Twitter sphere at SCHO525, or as we say it, SCO525, not Show525. Everybody have a good one.